Justin, I think we've met before, haven't we?
Yeah, Nick,
Whenever
we were at the Emerson project. I think that's where we crossed paths.
I wasn't really too involved. Oh yeah, that's right. No, I remember you. Yeah, I wasn't involved in the interiors at all, so
Yeah.
apologies. But I was focused on the decks and whatnot. Um, cool. Well, have at her, Cody.
Well, Mr. Justin Quinn, thank you for joining Ruction Nation. It's a pleasure to be able to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you, Cody and Nick, for having me. It's nice to be included in this.
Yeah. So I know Cody was he was kind of explaining what we're doing here, kind of our mission, just to reinforce that. Basically, we're just trying to promote the trade. So we're getting tradesmen of all kinds on the show, ranging from, you know, every different trade, but also hands-on guys, owners of companies, PM, supers, suppliers, whatever it may be. I even had my dad on a few episodes ago because he's been in the trades his whole career.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, we're just looking to get your story. So why don't we start off with what you're doing now and kind of what your day to day looks like currently?
So, I crossed paths with both of you uh, as the field supervisor for Crown America International. We supply the casework and countertops and commercial, multifamily. And a lot of my day to day is sort of, checking on our crews. Do they have what they need? Are they assembled? And a lot of that really is also being on the front end, making sure that the substrate and, there's not 200 different hurdles that are going to hold them up, and kind of in that hopeful just make everything as efficient and smooth as possible for our teams so that the train just keeps rolling on. um, you guys know better than anybody, being in the supervision roles, that if one trade stops and holds up, then everyone behind them are just going to kind of pile up on it, and eliminating that as best as we can, whether or not it's making sure that we've procured everything we need, if it's consumables, or if all of our material is all organized and where it should be and looking like it should be. So um, we've got a lot of projects going. It was really busy a couple of years ago. It's just kind of slowed down, which the market does its thing. So now it's kind of really hot and heavy on a few major projects. But yeah, we're looking forward to the future as well. Really enjoy working with all of our teams in the field. I've got, within cabinets and countertops, um, it's got to be 60 plus years of experience between just three different teams alone. So they've been doing multifamily and a lot of finish work in hospitals and different buildings as well throughout Colorado through their years. So it's really great to work around those people, and I've learned a lot from some of them and continue to learn a lot. It's a ever growing industry, so it's good to, I don't personally have a lot of experience. I kind of came into it right after COVID. So my professional career honestly goes back further into live entertainment and theater productions, which is 12 years of my history. And that's kind of a lot of what I know better than this construction, but there is a lot of crossover. So those skills and, that knowledge definitely carried over to what we're doing now, which I think is, mildly interesting. But um, it's I mean, it's all kind of relative. It's still a industry that's been kind of thriving and growing a little bit too. So I'm sure, just like construction, there's always something that they're going to want to build, and that can even lead into theater and entertainment. I mean, they just finished that Ford amphitheater down there, and right before Monument, and Uh, they'll, I'm sure, keep building more of them. They're gonna move Broncos Stadium. That'd be cool to be part of. So,
Yeah, sorry if I missed this at the start. So what is your position called? Do
um,
you have a title?
yeah, my business card from Crown just says Field Supervisor. So it's, I guess,
The
from a
superintendent role?
yeah, a construction management side, it's more of like a field engineer. Yeah, kind of a field superintendent. Just
Okay.
making sure we're on schedule. If that's, getting with any local, we've got a logistics partner if we need to move material from our warehouse that we partner with. Um, making sure that we have on-time deliveries if that's what the site needs. A lot of the high rises, all that parking garage, that's usually storage. So that making sure that materials on site's never really an issue in that respect. But we just recently have partnered down in Centennial, where I think it might be the first rehabilitation of an office building. So that was really cool. Shea Properties is turning an old office building at 4340 Monaco into like 124 kind of smaller, multifamily units. So that was sort of interesting to be part of and kind of see how an older building was put together before, technologies of today, which, that's probably good if that's the way that the industry is going to turn to. There's already a structure there. So that takes out how much of the timeline from moving dirt all the way up to finishes.
Hmm.
They, I think they probably spent, yeah, the better part of like 9, 10 months stripping the inside out and, tearing down walls that weren't structural, but it was, it's still neat to be part of and kind of see if that's an avenue that maybe the whole industry changes towards or gives, I guess, development partners an opportunity to, use what's already there that could, help expedite stuff.
So just thinking about our interaction with you, we've said this a lot of times. We're in the multifamily business, and the name of the game in multifamily is flow and production, not only for the job as a whole, but for each of the subcontractors that are on site. That's the only way you guys make money and keep your guys really. If
Mhm.
you're not providing production work for your guys, they're going to go look for work elsewhere. But what what's your biggest challenge that you face on a day-to-day basis doing what you do right now?
Um, I think in my brief history, so, my role as a superintendent essentially has only been about like 3 years now. And before that, I was working with one of our current subcontractors, putting cabinets on the wall. And that was about, 3 years as well. So commercial construction, I've only kind of been in this 6 years. So it's not a long history compared to my other profession. But I think even being the personnel that's putting everything up and being the supervisor, the biggest challenge to flow that I recall and still to this day see is if I give the construction management company information that should aid me, it would really help if it went somewhere because some of our partners have just taken it and I don't even know if they look at it honestly. My
Why,
emails might just be on red.
why do you think that is?
um it's hard to say with, the two names. One of them is actually the industry, for property management. They're the largest in the nation, so that may give you an idea of who's constructing down there in the Golden Triangle. But it it feels like it's accountability, if they can kind of put things together that are sort of within tolerances. Our contract says we need, a quarter inch over 10 feet for floor levelness. Walls are true and plumb, soffits, corners are square. If they aren't being proactive and keeping track of, what did every other subcontractor put together, are MEPs within my tolerances for casework, that kind of stuff can really add up to me having leave offs. And if I compile all that information to give to a construction management partner, you know, do they act on it immediately? Does it sit for days, sometimes weeks? It's just sad sometimes, but
Yeah, and those
um,
and those comeback units or any work that you have to come back to do is just a killer for you guys because it's again interrupting
yeah,
the flow and to figure out manpower back to a portion of the building that you're 99% done with. It's a big problem. I mean, my guess would be just people they have so much on their plate they can't keep up. It's like that's a small issue compared to my pile of 100,000 issues over here. Not that that's a good excuse, but that would be my guess as to why some of that stuff gets pushed off to the side and doesn't necessarily kill the whole job, but it certainly kills you guys and your installers to have to come back and do that work.
yeah. I mean, obviously our personnel, everyone performing the work is the most important tool that, any team has. If we don't have everyone in the field to perform that work, it's really going to sit there. So, from a keeping the morale up and, making sure that these guys are seeing, production flow, that gives everyone that drive to get up and go in each day and make their earning, make their living. So, um, on the very minuscule side, I mean, if you have go backs and there's potential damage to materials, like, there's measurable loss there, but, I think it's even worse loss if you really have personnel that just kind of up and quit, or they kind of start working on a 80% or 70% because they're just sort of dragging their feet kind of mundanely, oh, I guess I'll kind of go do some punch and really wish we had more production. Like, it's it's difficult. We've had so many crews that we've had for so many years that we try to balance out our projects, right? We don't want to play favorites with all of our subs that we've worked with through all these years. And you know, the business itself has to be ran with some sensibility. We can't just give some our most senior and A team, we can't just keep giving them all the work. They'll overload themselves and, our bottom line will be gone. And then nobody's going to have any business. But, there is a balance to it. And we try to, do our best. Um, if I can ever be of help in the field, like, I don't want to just be the leader that's, sitting back and cracking a whip. Like, that's not how anybody should be leading. And I think it's good to go out, be hands on in the field and really either show someone, like, this is what I expect to be done and how I want it to be done, because it is, the most efficient. Even if that comes down to just, mundane repairs, there's so much in the industry when it comes to, like, just, it kind of sounds weird, but the material sciences of, like, what are you going to use to do a repair? Some things are going to make it really efficient. Some things are going to, take their time and be a waste of product. So, being hands on and doing that in the field to make sure that, stuff's either being done or, and like I say, just keeping an eye on
We
things
lost
and
your
making
audio,
sure.
Justin.
Oh,
You
no.
are paused. An internet deal.
Uh-oh, sorry.
Oh, there you are. Yep. We're all
Oh,
good.
I'm here. Okay.
Internet.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Dang you, Quantum.
Real quick, I was going to ask this question. It just popped in my head. So I don't know if you're in charge of, hiring, firing, whatever over there. But what does your ideal candidate look like for an installer? Now, I mentioned that we had my father on the podcast. He works for a millwork company as well. They pretty much just produce the millwork and
Oh, neat. Okay.
send it out the door, and they don't really do any install for the most part. So I'm interested to hear on the construction side of things, on the install side of things, what does that ideal candidate look like to you? Who's the best out there for installing your cabinetry?
Um, I don't want to say that it comes down to a lot of experience. I think anyone that's willing to ask questions and wants to learn, I think is probably one of the better candidates. If you have somebody that maybe has more experience in, single family, kind of residential and that pace, that's not really the best candidate for multifamily because, we're, if you're not producing 4 units a day, then you're probably going to slow things down because multifamily, like we were saying before, that one project in, a 12-month span, that was 576 units that they put together. So there is a timeliness to a candidate. And, um, that might be part of my personal bias. I spent those years in live entertainment, and it's a lot of go, go, go. And I think that mentality to see a problem and know that there are solutions and not just throwing my hands up. I don't want anybody to be on a team that's just going to problem identify and not be willing to find a, you maybe I just move on and keep working. Like, it's not just dig my heels in and say, oh, I can't work now. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. But, the work ethic of wanting to get things done and not, not trying to be a me. I want this, I need that, I think is one of the most efficient things to, you know, see that somebody's out there willing to get that work done and wanting to get the work done, I think is one of the better candidates.
Sure.
And, that hopefully is, the younger aspiring hardworking kids. I mean, if anybody has time in college or, even the skilled trades, coming out of community college and learning some of the, rudimentary skills or even just the basic knowledge of um, a lot of the trades, I think is a great way to get that foundation. I'm sure in my hindsight, it probably would have helped me a lot, especially in this industry being as big as it is. But I just kind of brought in what I had already learned. But yeah, I think a good work ethic, a willingness to learn, and really having that drive to complete goals and tasks is really what I would say is what I would look for in a team.
No, that makes sense. You were talking a little bit about school, and you said something that sparked my interest earlier. You said you had 12 years of entertainment and theater experience. What did that look like? What did that all consist of?
Um, so I was fortunate to have somebody in my family that had been with a very large entertainment company that's it's Feld Entertainment is based out of Florida, and they produce Disney on Ice, Marvel Universe Live. They Kenneth Feld, Irving Feld owned Wrigley Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus for all those years. So I fortunately had an in back in 2008. Excuse me. So straight out of high school, I kind of got thrown into it, and I spent most of those 12 years in properties, which is just kind of like being the scenic guy with all the things that look pretty, Cinderella's carriage, and helping dress the sets, whether it was Cinderella's castle or Rapunzel's tower, like all of these elements that are painted and, look pretty. And, um, the things that come out onto the ice or go off stage, those are a lot of what are properties. And within entertainment, the properties guy is usually a jack of all trades. So at some point, I had to learn, a little bit of low voltage to kind of take care of animated props and know how to at least troubleshoot power continuity. The guys that are doing the lighting design and like all of the different channels with every moving light fixture, that kind of went over my head to troubleshoot where data interruptions were. But um and it was really great to learn from, being so young, to learn from senior people that had been doing that, and maybe had a college background as a stage manager. And the senior crew that I worked around taught me so much. um Being champions of safety in that environment was really great to kind of build as a foundation, because I will always be someone that, no matter what we're going to do, let's look at our job hazard analysis. Are we going into, uh, an arena that's going to have a really steep ramp? How are we going to be safe getting gear into here? What's our, storage? Are we making sure that everything's safely stored so that it doesn't become a hazard during show runs? Like that, I think, is probably the number one parallel with construction was, let's make sure that whatever task and job that we are doing today, we're doing it as safely as possible. You know, we always have our PPE for those, tasks that it's pertinent to. I really enjoyed being part of rigging, and where I grew up in Spokane, I got to be an uprigger. So I went up into the arena steel, was pulling up chains and steel rope and making baskets and helping with bridles. And the entertainment industry, we've got, uh, you have a rock and roll show, it might be 100 points they're hanging from the steel of the building. So it was, from an engineering standpoint of those arenas, it's really cool to see that, all this stuff can hang from all these, I think they're like 3-foot steel I-beams up there in the grid. So it was really cool to, learn that work ethic from production, where it's, it is the show must go on is probably a cliche, but it does have the time that everyone bought their tickets for. So we have to get this done now, which coming into commercial construction is not the same.
Sure.
But yeah,
That's
I think there's, a lot to be learned from both that have their crossovers, the safety mindfulness and like I said, if there's products that help repairs happen quickly, and we can be efficient with our time and kind of move on to the next task that's in front of us, it's definitely good to learn.
that's fascinating. I had no idea, nor have I really thought about that even being a job. Truly, just it's going there to build all these sets. You go to these shows, you go to these events, and someone has to do it in the back of your head, that, But so how did that look? You graduated high school, got on with this company. Did you end up going to school, or was there an apprenticeship, or were you just kind of a carpenter, if you
No,
will?
yeah. Um, like I said, I fortunately had family that had been in the company all those years, so that was uh that was kind of the shoe in. But the company does hire a lot of stagehands that come from a school background, whether it's a local collegiate uh, establishment that has a theater program, or I know a lot of our lighting and sound techs came from Full Sail, so there is those avenues because of how big the company is. I want to say nationwide, they've got at least 5 productions that tour within the continental United States, and then there was a Western Europe and Eastern Europe tour, Southeast Asia Pacific, kind of down into Australia, New Zealand, and then the one South America unit that would kind of bounce around Argentina and Brazil, and um, a little bit of Central South America.
Were you
But
able to go on any of those tours out of the States, or?
yeah, yeah, I got a lot of stamps in my passport. Thankfully, very
That's awesome.
fortunate that I got to travel so much. I will say that was definitely one instance that I very strongly remember, with the senior crew member being the safety mindfulness people, because as soon as you leave the United States, OSHA goes right out the window. There is
That's
a
fair.
lot, there's a lot of rigging, and unless you're in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, yeah, they even the English were a little wily with what they did, but it,
Are you willing or
um,
able to share any, like, I guess, different perspectives or interesting stories that some of our listeners wouldn't even think about from a safety perspective?
um, well, I guess most recently, so um, and kind of a sidebar to it, but one of the um, with it being Disney on Ice, obviously we need a big sheet of ice, so there's a bunch of touring, traveling. They're, I think they've actually gone through all of the HVAC training, because it's a giant cooling system with all of the glycol refrigerant running through the panels to freeze the ice floor. Um, so with that, when we play in Mexico, it's an actual theater. So you've got uh, maybe 60 feet of just a wood theater deck and that orchestra pit. And then they just built stage scaffolding for this ice floor to sit on over the seats. And in hindsight, that's probably not the best idea. But
How thick do you think the ice was?
so kind of just like hockey ice, they usually keep it at about an inch. Um, I I don't know what the math is for the weight of frozen water, but
Mhm.
that floor, the traveling system that they had, they could go up to 120 feet long. And I want to say those were only 40-foot wide panels.
Wow.
So it was good enough. I mean, a NHL hockey ice is 80 wide by 200 feet. So it was nowhere near, playing
Right.
an actual arena. But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Do you have a favorite place that you got the opportunity to travel to? Somewhere you'd highly recommend visiting at
Um,
some point, like a bucket list place?
uh, yeah, yeah. I always kind of dwell on this a little bit. There's so many great memories, and I've just been so fortunate. But I think for me, it was definitely Japan. It's
Oh,
it's just such a beautiful place. The people are just the most friendly, and the food is so delicious everywhere. I mean, you talk about like the the people themselves almost kind of embody a show where, everything they're doing, whether it's the guy at 7-Eleven, he's just putting in so much effort, and everyone, it's just like I don't know, it's kind of how the world should be. They're just so kind and they have so much heart and care. We had people that would just kind of stop us and be like, "Do you need help on where you're going? Like, where do you want to go?" And like go out of their way to show you where the bus pickup was, or which tram and train to take. Like it, and it's there's so much history, and it's it. I don't know. I wish, if anybody has the opportunity, I would definitely go to Japan. It's just so beautiful and so much fun. And the food. I don't know if you guys have ever had ramen, but man, I could eat that until I'm in the
You mean like
ground.
the packaged ramen from King Supers? Throw it in the pot? No. I've had real ramen. It's sometimes
Yeah,
people scoff at when you say ramen, you're like,
Yeah.
you haven't had real ramen.
Yeah,
Real ramen
for
is
sure.
amazing.
I've had a lot of good ramen here in the States. There's a lot of places that do it just about as well, and it's so delicious.
Mhm.
Probably not great for my cholesterol or anyone's cholesterol, but
Yeah.
might as well enjoy it.
So how long did you do you said it was about 15 years that you were doing?
Um, no, I was with Feld Entertainment from 2008 to the Corona pandemic definitely shut
Yeah,
everything down for pretty much everyone. But
took a big hit.
um, yeah, thankfully my wife and I were already planning to exit the company and kind of come back to what all of us now consider reality. Because when you travel, it's a lot of, I mean, the performers are playing make believe, but to come back and be part of the 9 to 5 society is was in and of itself its own learning curve. But yeah, I was with them for that 12 years, and my wife was a figure skater, performance director for about 8 years. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, it comes through pretty much every town every year. If you
Mhm.
guys, I don't know if you guys are fathers, or you know, little little princesses want to go see more princesses, I'm sure. So
Oh yeah, that's on our list. We both have young children, so I'm sure that's
yeah.
something you guys would probably go check out
yeah,
eventually too.
we would entertain. I have 2 little boys, and they
Oh,
like
neat.
Paw Patrol on Ice came up, and it was like, can we go
Oh,
to
that's fun.
this? I didn't know that the pups could skate. We should check it out.
Yeah, that's real
Um,
fun.
so you called the exhibits or the things that you guys were making properties, correct?
Yeah, that was my role.
Okay.
There are, I mean, just kind of like commercial construction, you've got in entertainment, the properties guys, there are carpenters. When you're on a touring show like that, a lot of the carpentry work isn't so much like wood. It's a lot of steel and aluminum that gets bolted together and pinned together, and um, there is wood backing to a lot of facade, but um, yeah, what construction would consider a carpenter is not really what entertainment would be, unless you were like really at the opera house theater where you're quite literally installing in the building, some nice scenic piece that has, all this intricate woodwork, and like those I would imagine are 50-year, I mean, if it's not Tom Sullivan from This Old House, they got to be some skilled carpenters, because that's a lot of intricate woodwork that goes into like, Broadway. I only helped being a local, here and there. But yeah, and then the electricians are running. I can't even count the linear feet of 4/0 5 loom that I've pulled for power runs, and you got big 60 amp breakouts for all of the big spotlights that need to get run up into the stands and run around all of the auditoriums and arenas. So
So
the electricians do their own power distribution.
are you on standby then when the shows are going just in case something is
Yeah,
needed or something breaks, or you're kind of there just in case a repair
yeah.
needs to
The
happen?
the traveling crew has their own set responsibilities during a show run. You have cues, curtain pages, setting up props for performers to take out or drive out, depending on the intricacies of the show. But yeah, a lot of standing around sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
that's really interesting.
That's interesting.
So then 2020 hits, COVID happens, live entertainment along with
Sanity.
I guess mostly just live entertainment. I mean, live entertainment probably took the biggest hit, I would say.
it's kind of interesting because some of our crews were still, construction here in Denver was still live and kind of going. It sounded like a lot of buildings were, you had to come into a booth, do the temperature read, and then go in the building and perform your work. And if there was inspectors, then like everybody had to leave. It,
Mhm.
it may depend on construction management company and certain jurisdictions, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a wild it was a wild time in our line of work as well. So then what did you do when all that kind of tanked? And you said you were already planning an exit. Did you have something in mind, or did you just start throwing your resume out there? How did you land with CAI?
so my wife works in the I guess you just say hospitality, and she managed a company and group of house cleaners for cottage care, and her operations manager was really close with one of our best subcontractors. So that connection and friend group gave me an opportunity to, present my resume and chat with um, that lead, and he, gave me an opportunity to come and kind of intern, see how things function for a couple weeks. And I did, basically just being the punch guy, kind of cleaning up after our installers, making everything look turnkey ready, as far as, are all the shelves in place, doors are on, hardware's on, all the reveals are how they should look, and, any of that punch touch up is pre-done. So that was my interim kind of learning about construction, because I really didn't know a whole lot.
We can see you. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, the
That's why I was
signal
just
went
shooting
away.
you a text, letting you know.
um, yeah, I like I said, I probably just with our subcontractor team for those 3 years. I mean, we worked with Confluence on Encore. That was really cool. Um, I did different projects kind of all over Westminster and Broomfield for, you know, uh, Lennar and BC Builders. Like, we have so many partners that just give us all these different avenues to keep everyone busy. So through those 3 years, I kind of got to meet and work with so many interesting people, and kind of learn how different companies operate. And um, so yeah, that fortunately learning from one of our best installers was maybe a blessing for me to see kind of the best way that what we do as commercial cabinet installers, the most efficient way that it can be done and should be done, really. And, you know, being in somewhat constant contact with the management of CA International gave me kind of that other end of like, hey, we communicate all the time. And then one of the project managers reached out to me when I was just sort of kind of finding a different avenue with construction. I was actually enrolled at CCD trying to get a associate's in welding fabrication because back to properties. I love tinkering with our welder, and I just always thought it was so cool that you can just fuse different metals together and kind of make all this cool stuff. But yeah, I got an offer from the project manager at CA to kind of become one of these field supervisors, and haven't looked back since. So I just guess I've been fortunate to shake enough hands and make an impact on some of those people I worked around that it's gotten me to where I am now. And talking with you guys, apparently. So
Yeah, and we heavily promote the hands-on trades with pretty much every guest that we have on. But what is the importance of your role or any management role on a job site? Or even looking back to your live entertainment career, there must have been some sort of management, someone kind of directing traffic, lining people out. How important is that role with your company and just in general in your eyes?
yeah, I would say I think the forethought and the being proactive, like how far ahead in what our task is can I look and assess what are our obstacles. Are we going to have even just as simple as delivering material? Have I walked this clear path? We're not going to be rolling over 700 cords and all these different gas lines, and is there other material stacked in our way? Like, just being able to look, if it's a day ahead or weeks ahead, if I can get in. um I mean, depending on our partners, am I there at framing? Am I there with a box walk? Like, how can I make sure that every layout is where we definitely want it to be? Does the substrate behind the drywall have the blocking so we can put these cabinets up safely? The last thing we want is a warranty item that a cabinet fell on some poor gal or guy or, child. Like, that would just be devastating to ever think about. So, you know, that the pre-planning and knowing, what what is going to cause us the most headache. Like, I want to get with our partners and know, this is what we need. Looking ahead at ADA, ANSI's requirements. Are we going to meet FHA compliance in all of these areas? We've got our clearances. Just making sure that when we are mobilized, that we can do our job and move on to the next unit, and not that we can't overcome a obstacle. If the flooring's out, like, let's talk about it. Can we shim? Can we block? Can we modify cabinets and shim? Like, there's so many options. But yeah, just looking ahead and knowing what is my team strength. Is there an easier way to deliver? Do we need to maybe just focus on one task while we kind of wait for more real estate for production? Like, just kind of knowing, what their needs are, and how can I facilitate it, to make sure that everyone's successful.
Yeah, it constantly blows my mind. And when you're in the day to day on the job, you don't really think about it that much. But whenever I'm in this studio and really start thinking about it, it just blows me away how much goes into any given thing in one of these apartment units that we build. So
Mhm.
like talking cabinets only, I don't even know where to start. It's probably gonna take me an hour to even describe. But there's all the processes. So we have conceptual design from our architect, and then we have ownership review these kitchen layouts and bathroom layouts, and like I'm talking down to we have a 12-inch drawer bank. Do we need 12 inches? Could we get away with 9 inches? Should it be 18 inches? How much silverware does a 3-bedroom unit need to carry for a family of 2 kids? Like it's down to that detail, and then we're going back and forth on these designs for probably months is what it seems like. And then it goes back to you guys. These cabinets get fabricated overseas. Then there's the shipping to the states. Once it hits port, then they package it up or they ship the containers to wherever the project is. And that's where you come in, unloading, staging. You get your crews in there. Um, and when we're building out the unit, again, we're thinking of backing. We got to nail these dimensions because your cabinets are pre-manufactured. They're you guys assemble them on site, but they're pre-manufactured. So if a dimension is off by 1 inch, it can throw the whole thing off or not fit. So we're down to the half inch, the quarter inch. We got to nail it. Plus backing, plus the floor needs to be level. I mean, there's just so much. The plumbing for the sink needs to be in the right spot. The electrical needs to be in the right spot. It's like 100,000 things need to happen and go correctly for you to walk away and say, "There's your kitchen" to whoever's living in that unit. It just blows my mind to think through the whole process and how many people are involved, and down to then you guys going in and doing your little punch work, adding the hardware on, doing your adjustments so everything's lining up and operating correctly. It's just quite the process, and when you think about it as a whole, it blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah, the the interesting thing, you know, we're putting in what is, essentially finished decorative products, but they're functional, right? They're
Mm.
going to support all of your kitchen utensils, like you say, everyone's pots and all their dry goods and appliances and, kind of whatever else that you would find in your kitchen. But depending on you go back to design, are we going to have, gas ranges? Do we need to vent out all of these, VOCs that come from cooking? We need to incorporate that. So now, this isn't just holding a microwave. Now it's actually got mechanical venting through it. We need to make sure that that's all properly routed and done. Um, there's, I mean, within casework design, you can have, lazy Susan cabinets with all of these mechanical, you know, the lazy Susan that spins, or you can have ones that kind of like track out to where you can get to the blind corner. Like there's there's so much kind of neat hardware to think about that can make accessibility and make the functionality in a kitchen so superb for daily activities. And I, from the beginning, I think a lot of building design, when ownership and architects are talking about it, is, how much FHA and, you know, 100% ANSI compliance are we going to incorporate? I always try to keep an eye on it even before any of our stuff's on site so that we can talk about, those kind of rules, we can interpret them in kind of one or two ways. Is it finish to finish? Is there a 16th in that finish to finish? Like, how stubborn are we going to be with countertop to finish floor and, some of these reach dimensions? So it's definitely one thing that I think can be looked at as a hindrance, but I think when everything measures out and comes in compliance, then it should just flow like any typical unit that you just pass by. And, I mean, it should be there. I think, um, you know, whether or not anybody that's going to occupy these units is just either from circumstance having to be, in a wheelchair, or, maybe it's, uh, our veterans that are needing a home. There's a reason why somebody has to have that compliance. And I think it's great that we're giving the opportunity to have that population have somewhere that they could call home. And, making sure that we do that properly and accordingly, I think is definitely good.
Yeah, with that being said, we're gonna take a quick break. I just need to double check something real quick, and then we'll come back. You can stay on the line and chat with Cody for a second, but I gotta run something real quick.
So your wife was a figure skater?
Yeah.
That's
She,
wild.
grew up, Denver's got a huge figure skating club between the South Suburban Sports Complex. I think they finished building that like 6 or 7 years ago. There's 3 sheets of ice in that facility. And then the Family Sports Center over like East Centennial, that has 2 sheets of ice in it.
Okay.
But the funny thing is that's where the Avalanche train all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets kicked out of there all the time because the Avalanche come in and they're like, well, we got to train. And they just buy the facility out and
Right.
kick everyone out. So,
Is it true?
I mean,
Is it true that the preference of ice is different for hockey players and figure skaters?
yeah, 100%. So figure skaters want the ice just a little bit warmer and a
Yep.
little bit like spongier
Mm-hmm.
so that
I've
they
heard
can
that.
actually dig in. But hockey players want it cold so that the puck just flies across the ice.
Yeah, they want it hard.
They want it cranked down, turn that temperature way, way down, and let's make that ice as hard as we can.
Yeah,
Which
that's all
at
crazy.
a coaching level, she has to fight with, the whole community of Denver Figure Skating Club is like up and coming, young wannabe hockey players, like, whether it's women's hockey or men's hockey, like it, I mean, or unisex teams, kind of whatever the club might want to do, like that ice has to then tend to both the figure skaters that want their ice and then the hockey players that want their ice. So it's a balance for the venue operations people over there, but I think they do a pretty good job. She manages, and I mean, it's from the sound of it, those clubs are growing and growing, and it's just, I mean, there's so many coaches and so many pupils that want to learn. I mean, you look at every Stanley Cup season, I'm sure there's more people that want to, learn to ice skate and be, one day hockey players. When DU does really well, or now it's the Olympics and everybody loves watching ice skating on the Olympics. So it's good. It gave her a lot through her years. And I know that she just loves it with a passion. So that was really cool to see, and glad that she can continue that into her future. So
Yeah, definitely. It's cool. You're back? Yeah.
thumbs up. Excellent.
Great. So going back into just the day-to-day, talking about your role and the quick rundown that Nick gave us for everything that goes into the installation of the cabinets. What is one thing or one frustration that you have that general contractors could do better about in order to make your guys' job better or more successful?
Hmm. All right, I'll go easy on you guys.
No, go hard.
So, uh, it's frustrating as one of the finished trades to hear a really big emphasis on our QA QC. Of course, I'm going to keep a really close eye on what our product is that we're delivering to you guys and ownership. Um, but it would be really helpful if there was somewhere along the lines, if even the MEP guys could just run back through and pull a tape. Is the plumbing and the electrical in the sink base so that the kitchen works? Does it need to shift a little bit? Like, um, and framing we can kind of work around. Like I said, there's tolerances. I can cut cabinets down, we can block them up, depending on, uh is it podium decks, is it prescient decks? I mean, if you guys are just pouring gypcrete, like, more than likely you guys can probably just float around us if we have to block up. Like, there's workarounds to make sure that the finished product that everyone's providing is what it needs to be. But yeah, I would, and I guess shame on me for not asking more construction management teams, but like, why doesn't MEPs have a QA QC? Like, did you actually put everything where it's supposed to be per shops, per architecturals?
Yeah, I would
I think,
agree with that. I mean, the QA QC really comes in at the end of the jobs because we're trying to turn over, we're getting into punch list. But I see what you're saying, like heavier QC up front to set up those back end finished trades to be able to come in and be successful. Because it's, something's off. It's what the hell, cabinet guy?
yeah, I
Why
mean,
are
we're
we?
guilty of it.
Well,
Fortunately, I'm overseeing the two trades that, precede one another. So, if the cabinet guy didn't shoot a laser or doesn't know what his 8 foot level is telling him, then the countertop guy is going to be mad. And that's then maybe going to screw up what the backsplash tile does. And it just like, it cascades from there for trims and your guys's, electrical finals, plumbing finals. Like, there's so many. The MEPs come back around for finishes, and we all want that, you know that uh oh, I had the term right there on the tip of my tongue, but I guess I forgot. That path of all of those trades, making sure that the critical path, all of us that are on that line, to make sure that turnovers and acceptance walks are happening. So,
That's fair. Is there anything else or?
um I I would say, I think in general the whole industry is pretty good about sequencing. It weirds me out a little bit that the major company that is managing property throughout the nation has their own set in stone way that they want to paint very last, which I don't really get, because then the painter's spending all of this time masking off everything just to spray the walls and spray the trim and spray the ceiling. That seems kind of ridiculous, but I don't know. That's just kind of how one company's done it. And then, of course, when we work with them, we've always had uh, face frame cabinets that are paint grade finish. So it's, whatever Sherwin-Williams color that ownership chose. But that thin veneer on the ply, if they aren't using a delicate tape to mask everything off, when they go to peel that tape and all that masking, it's just going to rip all those veneers off. And now we all have more work to do. So that one company seems a little silly that they do it that way. But in general, I think like everyone, it's usually swing some doors, depending if you guys are like a class 3 or class 4 finish on the walls, let's texture, let's swing some doors, let's paint, get the cabinet guy in there, countertops, that sequence is kind of set in stone for basically everyone. So, kudos to all you guys that are doing it the correct way.
We like to set the cabinets first and then frame the walls around the cabinets.
Really want to
At
make
least
sure you
I'll
get the
know where all the
backing.
backing is.
Yeah.
No, I've heard of that too, and our painter's even thrown that out there before. Just he'd prefer to get in there dead last, so he's not having any rework, and it's worth the extra prep and masking to do that. So I could see the reason for that, but yeah, you have some good points as to why not to do it that way.
Yeah.
Could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself if you want to? You can also tell me to pound sand if you don't want to share any personal information, but just kind of who Justin is, what do you like doing outside of work, kind of yeah, just tell us about yourself a little.
Yeah, so I guess not to be overly cliche with being a millwork, previous cabinet installer. I do enjoy, kind of, doing some built-ins here at the house, or, getting all the saws out and kind of, making my own workstations and desks. And like, I think there's a lot of artistry that can be in, what is probably kind of forgotten, especially in commercial construction, but like, the really old homes that you think of, whether it's like old colonial style and old Victorian homes where all this like intricate woodwork was either like hand carved or, you know, even if it was just like rudimentarily routed and put together, like I think there's some really awesome beauty in that. It's something that I kind of aspire for in our home here. You know, it's not super it's not a huge home, so it's not a lot of square footage that I gotta try to run linear feet of any material, but it's a really rudimentary first house for first time homeowners. Luckily we got in after that whole, it was crazy trying to buy a house in 2020, 2021. It was just dog eat dog out there with everybody. I don't know who all these people were that have cash to buy a home, but holy cow, it was crazy.
Yes, it was brutal. We bought in 21 as well.
Yeah, we had to throw out, and I don't know if it was just our real estate agent was kind of holding back on us, but we had to throw out the basically like no the gap on the all of the comps for I forget what was that term. It was like a clause for the what the loan was and then what the comps came back at. So we basically said like it was open ended, we'll pony up an extra 10, 20, 50 grand, I guess, to make the close. But that was the like one ticket I think that helped us get in. But yeah, I mean, I can't say enough that how fortunate we've been to find somewhere, and whatever I can do. I don't consider myself an electrician, but seeing as how I spent all that time on live entertainment shows where it was like, sometimes you're running a 20-pin Sockopex that's carrying all this data. I think I can run some extra some extra 3-wire to add some more outlets and kind of increase our power distribution. But
how many times have you shocked yourself?
if you go over to that big thing with all the switches, you can turn all the power off, and then there's the little buzzer thing that you can go beep beep beep. Okay, I think it's safe. So
you wouldn't save yourself 5 steps.
I watch.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely more intelligent probably than I know Nick and I have shocked ourselves. So
Well, hopefully it didn't. Yeah, hopefully it didn't hurt you too bad. I know.
I've just got a weird twitch in one eye. No, I'm joking.
Well, in all seriousness, anybody that's listening, there are the four major things from OSHA, and the fourth one usually is electricity. So do not
Just true.
touch it. If you don't know, ask somebody that should know. You know,
Yeah, it can
just
be
like six doors down is a retired IBEW guy, and I've never actually kind of chatted with him on what he used to do, but that's really cool to have been in the brotherhood of electrical workers, and
Mhm.
if he was running high power lines, like that's insane. I don't know how anybody could be anywhere near that. That's crazy.
It's
But
pretty cool.
yeah, I mean,
So
relocating some plumbing, like, I guess the jack of all trades that I had in
Mhm.
theater,
Yep.
you either gotta learn or, pay somebody else to do it. So I did my best to learn the little bit that we needed, but
Yeah, wood. It sounds like some woodworking stuff, home projects, which I know both Cody and I can relate. It does become kind of a hobby. It's like a necessity at first, and you can save yourself some money and kind of do things how you want. Um, but it does become fun. I always need a break from home projects. It's like, all right, we're gonna tackle the living room. Spend a month or so on that, and you're just doing nights and weekends, and then you're like, all right, I need a break from home projects for a couple months. Find
do you
something else.
guys do you guys have the ability to like garden and, kind of tinker with your landscaping, kind of
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
plenty
Yep.
of perennials, or is it annuals every year?
I have a bunch of gardens. We at my house we installed seven, either 7 or 9 garden beds, and they're big.
Mm.
So
Wow.
we've been doing big gardens. My wife got really into it, so we're basically growing everything from seed in the house in one of those little kits, and then
Nice.
after Mother's Day or sometime in the spring, I swear we get hit by snow every time we like plant,
Hmm.
and then the next weekend it'll snow. So we're out there like trying to cover and putting buckets over stuff, but yeah, we
Yeah.
we have recently got into that, which is oddly satisfying. I've always been kind of a adrenaline junkie hobby type guy, but yeah,
Mm.
the gardening thing is a lot of fun. It's super satisfying to get halfway through summer and it's all as tall as you, tomato plants, and then you start harvesting, and it's pretty satisfying. Do you do that as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah, we've got just enough of a vegetable garden, but I think with I grew up in Washington State, and my wife is the native Coloradan, so um, I've only lived here since 2020, and I don't think I will ever understand the weather or the climate here. It just makes absolutely no sense. But
Gotta love
we
that
are,
stuff.
yeah, I'm not mad about it when I can go out and hang my clothes up to dry in December. That's awesome. Um, but we're trying to be water wise with our planting, a lot of high plains desert native plants, and kind of create that like wild habitat for pollinators, and as many birds as we can lure in, kind of like create that. It's I mean, it's out there. Like, we try to go out, explore all the state parks and all of the green spaces as much as we can on weekends, and it's such a beautiful state. Like, it's just awe-inspiring sometimes, but just to kind of bring that home, I think a little bit, I think is really cool. Um, we're kind of bound, unfortunately. I think it's like a 75-year-old Chinese elm in front of our house that, just being on the like northwest side, blocks a lot of our real estate for growing. So that's kind of a bummer, but it does shade the house a lot, so it kind of helps in cooling in the summer. So but yeah, that's a little bit of a burden. But
Yep.
mature trees are nice to have. But yeah, there's nothing like having fresh veg for when you want to
Mhm.
cook your meal, and I mean, a sliced tomato on your sandwich is really hard to compare to, you know, I mean, not that all the food in the stores isn't still nutritious and delicious, but it's just there's something a little bit different about going and picking it fresh off the vine.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So you said you try to get out to state parks and see the everything Colorado has to offer. Do you guys camp? Do you just kind of day trip?
Yeah, we've with some of our family down in Littleton. I'm here in Inglewood, and our relatives are down in Littleton, so we're all pretty close and tight knit. But my in-laws were looking at property out towards 11 Mile Reservoir, um, and the whole I think it's Pine National Forest down there south. So we were kind of camping down in that region so they could kind of bounce around and look at different properties. And it's, I think, personally, I think it's nice to kind of stay on like the 285 west and south,
Mhm.
because once you're like 70 and out that way, it's just a lot more people.
Mhm.
So, we always go hike out into, Evergreen and Conifer. There's so many great trail systems out there. And we went out probably 2 summers ago. We went out to Crested Butte. Is so gorgeous. And, it's kind of for the time being, a sleepier hideaway to, go snowshoeing and kind of just get out into nature. Um,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
where I proposed to my wife. Actually, was Crested Butte.
oh, wicked. Oh,
Mhm.
nice. Oh,
Yeah,
that's really, really
yeah.
lovely.
It's a
Nice.
special place to us, and it is truly just stunning.
I actually proposed to my wife just down at the South Platte Park. Just walking along the South Platte, there was all the sunflowers, and you can see the sun setting on the foothills. And
Oh yeah,
I
you
was
can
like,
get
this looks like as good enough place as any.
right.
So,
Colorado is
but
definitely very picturesque for
yeah,
many of those places.
yeah, yeah. There's so many little pockets of like preserved, just kind of green space for everyone to enjoy. I think is really neat that the city has established that. And the Keep Colorado Wild, like they're pumping so much money into preserving it, and it's really good.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't know if you
Washington.
guys
Oh,
have,
sorry.
have watched the Ken Burns documentary about the national parks, but it just
Mm-mm.
it really establishes like how amazing it was that our founding fathers thought, we should protect these lands from, logging and development and misuse, and just to give that to everyone, I think is really cool. So it's great to see. Uh, but yeah, Washington is is just kind of as beautiful. Rains a lot more, so everything's a little bit greener, which is nice. But
Way
some
green.
people don't like the green. Some people don't like the rain, but
Yep.
um,
Yeah, I
anyway.
had the opportunity to visit Spokane a few times actually. I had a bunch of friends that went to Gonzaga up there.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful area. Love Spokane.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Spokane or
Yeah. That's
Spokane? How do you say it?
just Spokane. Yeah.
Spokane.
Not. Yeah. That's weird. Don't say that.
All right.
Spokane.
I don't know.
Okay. That's
No,
awesome.
that's weird. But yeah, that's old Blue Eyes, Bing Crosby's an alumni of Gonzaga University. So, in the Christmas spirit, if you guys watch White Christmas or
Yeah.
listen to any of his music, that's his hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I liked growing up there, and I've got family all over the Northwest. So, actually, kind of a weird. I'm not sure why I didn't bring this up earlier. In my high school time, the summer between junior and senior year, I went and pounded footings for my uncle down in Oregon, who he worked his way up through Triplet and Wellman over there in Oregon, and they've done so many hospitals and public schools, like that whole commercial construction kind of avenue. And one summer I went and just banged forms and was pouring concrete for 3 different school buildings on one project. And it was a good lesson for a teenager to learn what real
Everything,
hard work is.
everything about concrete is just so damn heavy.
Yeah,
Everything
moving,
that you do.
I guess they had to have been 20 or 30 foot 2x12s or 2x16s for all those footings that we were putting everywhere. But yeah, it was a good summer. It's good to learn. And honestly, my uncle, hadn't been the foreman, and at some point he was project manager. He was a good resource when I kind of first was getting into construction, to like call up and like, what are these terms, like what's going on here? I have no idea what these guys are talking about with open RFIs, and like just there was so much stuff that he was kind of crucial of, like, I need a quick rundown of what all of this is. So, and yeah, so shout out to Triplet Wellman for being
Awesome.
such a great team. But yeah, I love the Pacific Northwest. It's a great area if people have the time to go travel through there. Really great wine country. But
We're kind of nearing. Well, I guess we got. How much time do you have? Do you have any more? You have some time for us, or trying to get going?
I think, yeah, my wife just got home, so I should probably bid you guys adieu, because
Okay.
she's in her business, then now going to jump on her conference calls for
Okay.
the theater groups and stuff. So should
No
probably
worries.
get out of her way.
Can I ask you 2 quick questions before we take off?
Of course, yeah. No,
Number one, would you recommend the position you're in now to someone that's looking into getting into the construction industry, whether that's a young kid, someone that's doing other trade work? Would you say it's a viable and rewarding career? Would you recommend this career to anyone else?
I think if someone were maybe established, I didn't have that many years actually physically doing the work, but I think to be a good leader, I think it is essential that you know kind of the ins and outs of what is your team doing, like what physically went into it. So anybody that has, an cured, an acquired amount of experience, I think can be a good leader and be responsible for multiple teams, and making sure that if it's a financial aspect, like, that kind of takes a lot to kind of rein in, what are we doing with spending? Are we over budget? Like, I think, and I of course don't have the history of any college experience, so there's probably a lot more qualified people that have come out of schools with project management. There's some certificates that I would definitely like to look into. I think it's the certificate of associate project management, CAPM. I want to say is kind of like the first stepping stone that I've looked at for all that PMP training. And I mean, anybody that wants to take the time and kind of learn more, I think is always a good candidate for being a strong leader. So that's, if it was someone that I just had to like teach green, I don't think I would want them to just jump into this, because there's a bit of headache with managing so many teams and so many projects. can be overwhelming at times, but and definitely if anybody's, wanting to be a leader, I would very strongly stress that the OSHA 10-hour general is definitely a good foundation of knowing what to look out for and how to be sensible with the environment that you're in, as far as all of those, you know, um, anybody that is ever working at heights, you have to be tied off properly. Like that is just the scariest thing to see anybody ever being around unprotected edges that don't have the proper restraints. Like you need to know where you're working and what your potential hazards are. So, anybody in a leadership role should definitely be cognizant and well versed in their safety.
For sure. Before Nick asks his closeout question, is there any books, resources, or anything that you have used that you would like to point someone in the right direction to gain some of the knowledge that you have?
Mm, I think just for casework cabinets in multifamily, the KCMA is the Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers Association of America, and that's a really good handbook, guidelines of sort of how everything should start out being fabricated and those tolerances for, construction of cabinets, the resilience to, the environment that they're going to be tested in. What are the limitations on finishes when you're going for closeout? Like just knowing kind of that basic breakdown of the level that we're at, I think is really good for anybody that's, depending on what company you may be working for a millwork company, if it's casework, definitely knowing those KCMA standards, I think are really, really solid because it's come up so many times for us where we've presented it to a construction management company and said, this is what you need to be looking at, right? We're not down in Polo Reserve. This isn't Cherry Hills Village. We're not building, 6,000 square foot beautiful homes. This is a little bit different standards. So let's set ourselves at that level and let's work forward from here.
For sure.
And then just to wrap this up, we like to give our guests just an opportunity to really say whatever they want. So if you have a general message for our listeners, or if you want to address a mentor, anyone on your crew, just a general message for anyone really, just kind of final words.
I just I guess would thank both of you for wanting to include me in this podcast. I know a lot of your previous teams have had, lifetimes of experience in construction compared to me, and I've only been in the commercial construction for a little bit of time, but I do think that if it's whatever trade that somebody may be thinking about, you know all of them have their place, and it's all part of, from the foundation to walls going up to the MEPs to finishes, paint. Like everybody has their purpose to put, a roof over someone's head and try to make it an inviting place to, for someone to call home at some point. And I think if they want to pursue that, and we want to build our industry's staff numbers, because sometimes it seems like we're understaffed. Last thing any construction management company, a PM or senior super wants to hear is that we don't have enough people. Like that's never good. So anybody that's looking into joining, there's going through being journeyman in so many different avenues, and like learning hands-on, I think is such a great avenue because it can teach you so much that you can use outside of work in your own personal life. And um, you know of course, with that grain of salt of always having a safety mindset. I can't stress that enough to anybody that's listening is if you're going to go into work every day, um, one of the construction companies that we worked with, the sign out front of the project, the most important thing that you can do here is to go home to your family and your friends and loved ones. So nothing on that job site should ever put your health and your life in jeopardy. It's just a building. It's probably going to be there tomorrow. So just everyone being cognizant of their surroundings and that, job hazard analysis that they're doing that day. Just make sure that you guys are, hopefully enjoying what you're doing and doing it safely. So
It's well said. Very well said.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate your time, and it was good to hear your story. And yeah, hopefully we see you on the job here soon.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
yeah. Yeah. Thanks you guys, Cody, Nick. I appreciate your guys' time, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, have a great night.
I would say
All right.
just stay on for a little bit. I need to make sure that
Okay.
you upload. I'm going to end the recording, and then we
Okay.
just need to
No worries.
upload all the stuff, and then we can cut you loose.
Okay. Sounds good.